As far as I know, I'm the head coach of the Texans right now and moving forward with that.
That was Texans head coach David Culley earlier this afternoon, as it is Black Monday in the NFL, and he still is the Texans head coach. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another installment of the Fox 26 Sportstream. As always, I'm Sal Manine, sports producer here at Fox 26. You can find us every Monday just after 7 o'clock. You can go to our YouTube channel. Just search Fox 26 Houston on YouTube, and you'll find us. Go to our website, fox26houston.com, or you can find us via social media on Twitter and on our Facebook page. So, of course, the big news today, besides the national championship game, which is just set to get underway between Alabama and Georgia, is it's Black Monday in the NFL, meaning everybody who did not make the playoffs can do some reevaluation of things, and this is when you start to see the coaching carousel really pick up. 3 more head coaches were let go today. Matt Nagy in Chicago, after we already saw Vic Fangio was let go Saturday night into Sunday. But Matt Nagy today, Mike Zimmer, and Brian Flores with the Dolphins, which was somewhat of a surprise given the fact that that team won a lot of games the last 3 years despite not having an answer at quarterback and all kinds of other challenges with their roster. But Brian Flores is now one of the top coaching candidates out there, as there are now 6 openings in the NFL. And just because a coach or a GM or some assistant coach was not let go today doesn't mean that things may still not change. ESPN is reporting that even though David Culley says he's still the head coach as far as he knows, and he met with reporters today via Zoom and a handful of reporters at the Texans practice bubble, ESPN is reporting the Texans are still evaluating things, so that could possibly change sometime in the coming days. So we will keep our eye on that. So let's get right into what happened today with David Culley and a handful of players as they were going through their exit interviews following the 2021 season and what they had to say on how things played out and how things might play out going forward. Here's Fox 26 sports director Mark Berman, who was at NRG Stadium this afternoon.
3 more NFL head coaches were fired today, bringing the total number of openings to 6. But so far, the Texans' David Culley has avoided adding his name to that list.
As far as I know, I'm the head coach of the Texans right now and moving forward with that.
David Culley says he has no meeting scheduled with general manager Nick Caserio or team ownership to discuss his job status. Despite the challenges of the year, Culley says he enjoyed his first season as an NFL head coach.
I loved every minute of it, Mark. I mean, every minute. I did not like the losses. Nobody likes the losses, but I love this job. And again, like I said, I don't consider this work. You know, I know sometimes whenever you don't win enough ball games, people start. And I have people talking about like they're feeling sorry for me. Feel sorry for me? Do you know what I do? I'm the head coach of the Houston Texans, you know, regardless of what the record is. And that's a beautiful thing.
Even though they went just 4-13 this year, many Texans players believe Culley deserves a shot to return for year 2.
I thought Coach Culley did a great job, you know, his first year as a head coach. And, you know, kind of the situation we had here kind of in Houston, you know, it wouldn't have been easy for anybody. And so I feel like his leadership was consistent and who he was consistent. And that's kind of what we needed here as a leader, as someone to kind of run this team. So, you know, I hope he gets another shot. I hope he gets to kind of showcase who he is, what he does, how he does it here, because it'd be really interesting to see the jump he takes with the team next year.
Yeah, I mean, I think he did a great job all season. Obviously, he was a great leader for the team. I mean, in the game of football, ultimately, it comes down to wins and losses. But, I mean, he had full faith in the team and really led us well all season. And, I mean, I loved him as a coach, and I hope he's back.
I mean, you talk to a guy who's been traded a lot, so it's a business. So, you know, at the end of the day, that's what I would say. But, you know, he's a great coach. Like I say, he meant well to us this year and had a lot of energy and did a lot of positive things. But, you know, as we all know in this business, things happen.
Both Brandon Cooks and Davis Mills had high praise for quarterbacks coach and passing game coordinator Pep Hamilton, who is reportedly a candidate to move on to be an offensive coordinator with Carolina. Mark Berman, Fox 26 Sports.
So, as you heard, as of right now, David Culley telling reporters today he does not have any meetings scheduled with general manager Nick Caserio or Cal and Janice McNair, the team owners. That doesn't mean that things could not possibly change in the coming days or weeks. But Coach Culley did point out that he is not going to seek out the people above him to say, what's my job status? That they would have to come to him and say, we want to have a sit down, we want to have a talk. Now, it's obviously easy to look at what's gone on with the Texans this past year, and David Culley didn't necessarily do anything that acquitted himself in the likes of Vince Lombardi or Bill Belichick. But at the same time, even if you were to bring in, let's say, a Bill Belichick or some coach of that ilk, this Texans team is still in the midst of a lengthy rebuild. There's still going to be a lot of roster turnover yet again. There are still questions at the quarterback position. And while Davis Mills did look nice the last month or so of the year and at times did some impressive things, it's not like simply getting rid of David Culley is going to alleviate all ailments that the Texans currently face. And so that's why it would not shock me in the least if the Texans brass decided, at least for 2022, to keep David Culley on longer. Now, obviously, it's an ever-changing world, minute by minute, hour by hour in the NFL. And as I mentioned, there are some more openings available, and also some new candidates on the market, namely Brian Flores, who, of course, has a relationship with Nick Caserio and Jack Easterby from their time together with the New England Patriots. But does that necessarily mean that, one, Brian Flores would want the Texans job? And if he is going to be a candidate in demand, he would have just as many other top-notch candidates, such as, say, an Eric Bieniemy. They'll have their options. So even if the Texans did want to say, we want to move on from David Culley, it's one and done. You could see the writing on the wall and all the different questions about play calling, clock management, the way they had to suspend multiple players for off the field issues throughout the season. So even if you want to say, all right, David Culley doesn't appear to be the guy, if you don't have that next guy lined up to come in and take over, it's not like you're necessarily taking a giant step forward, because you're still going to need to address so many different holes and deficiencies within your roster, within your organization. So I wouldn't be shocked if David Culley does survive this go-round of NFL firings and is still the coach in 2022. Whether you like it or not as a fan, that I could see that being at least part of the Texans' rationale, that here's a guy who's grateful to be here, and you heard him say he loves every minute of the job, and it was his first opportunity to be an NFL head coach. And so if you are the Texans management who's trying to rebuild this thing basically from the ground up, then maybe having a yes man there in a head coaching seat is something that you may want. And so that's one of the many issues that the Texans are going to have to wind their way through as this offseason unfolds. Of course, we know that they're going to have not just their first round pick, which is number 3 overall, but likely several first round picks if they are able to trade Deshaun Watson sometime before the NFL draft, which that seems to be the expectation around the league. Obviously, there is something much bigger than football that has to be addressed and resolved as it pertains to Deshaun Watson, but everybody around the league seems to be acting under the assumption that at some point the legal issues around Deshaun Watson will be resolved, and if the NFL has to adjudicate them in any manner, teams will at least know what they are getting if they were to make a run at DW4, and that would likely mean multiple first and second round draft picks for the Texans moving forward. So again, for right now, David Culley remains the head coach of the Texans, and we will continue to monitor just what changes, if anything, in the coming days and weeks. Now, yesterday after the game, which was another loss for the Texans, David Culley said that he expects his entire staff to be back, but as we heard players and even Coach Culley allude to today, there's going to be interest for some of the names on the coaching staff, notably Pep Hamilton, who was the quarterback's coach and served as the passing game coordinator this past season. And obviously he has a long and very decorated an impressive resume in both the NFL and college ranks. Remember, he was under David Shaw at Stanford and helped mold Andrew Luck into the star he became, and then became Andrew Luck's OC his first few years with the Indianapolis Colts. And so perhaps that's one of the many reasons why, if you're a team who's in need of an offensive coordinator, you look at what he did this year when the Texans basically knew at the beginning of the year they were not going to have Deshaun Watson. And you bring in a veteran journeyman in Tyrod Taylor, who's recovering from an injury, and then you have a rookie third-round draft pick. And while you won't confuse any of those guys or the play at quarterback this year with vintage Brady or Montana or Dan Marino, the fact that Davis Mills seemingly got better as the season wore on and finished the year strong is certainly a feather in the cap of Pep Hamilton. So right now his name has been rumored for the Carolina Panthers offensive coordinator position, and both Brandon Cooks and Davis Mills gave very high praise for Pep Hamilton and the job that he was able to do this year. Now, I mentioned Davis Mills and his progression. Look at how he finished the season. His last 5 games as the starting quarterback, completed more than 68% of his passes for 1,258 yards and 9 touchdowns against just 2 interceptions. If you were to extrapolate those numbers over the course of a 17-game regular season, then you're looking at a guy who throws for more than 4,100 yards, more than 30 touchdowns, and has a TD to interception ratio of 4-1, which, while that may not be Patrick Mahomes-esque, that's still in the upper half of the league as far as numbers for a starting quarterback. And I'm sure if you told the Texans at the beginning of the year with no Deshaun Watson that your quarterback could throw for those kinds of numbers, that's something that they would likely sign up for. Now, again, just because Davis Mills did this as a rookie over the last 5 games doesn't guarantee that that's what's going to happen in 2022 if, as everybody is presuming, he will be the starter from day one. And obviously things are a lot different when there's a whole lot more tape out on you and teams can start to game plan specifically for you and your skill set. And don't forget, obviously, a lot of this was Davis Mills playing from behind quite frequently. And sometimes the opponent had a big lead. And so they were able to kind of take their foot off the gas, which I don't necessarily know if that's what Tennessee did yesterday, but it was 21-0 at the half before the Texans finally came alive. But you also saw that when you took the reins off a little bit and let Davis Mills go up tempo and throw the ball a little more, he is able to put up some numbers. So I think, as we discussed previously, this doesn't guarantee that the Texans have found their franchise quarterback. I think we still have a long ways to go before you can definitively say that that is what Davis Mills is or is not. But at the very least, it means for 2022, all you have to do is go find another veteran to bring in as an insurance policy and to help guide and mentor Davis Mills along. You don't have to go and use a first-round pick, especially if you do have multiple first-round picks after you trade Deshaun Watson. You don't have to reach for a Matt Corral or a Kenny Pickett, a Malik Willis, a Sam Howell from UNC. Is kind of everybody in the NFL world seems to agree there really isn't a first-round caliber quarterback this year. Certainly not someone the likes of some of the QBs we've seen go the last couple years that were coming in either with the pedigree of a Trevor Lawrence or who obviously have shown some very impressive things in their first couple seasons, like Justin Herbert, let's say. So if you're the Texans, you can at least go into 2022 and you turn the reins over to Davis Mills while you continue to build out your roster, because there's not one position on this Texans team that you can look at and say, all right, that group is set. We don't need to draft an offensive lineman. We don't need to draft a linebacker. We don't need to draft edge rushers. Everything is available for the Texans wherever those other first and second round picks may end up. And that's why also don't be surprised, depending on how things play out with the first and second pick, if the Texans don't perhaps trade down and try to acquire more draft picks, because they're going to have a lot more roster turnover again, because it's not only that they have to rebuild and build depth, but so many of the players who were on the active roster this year were on short-term 1 or 2 year deals, non-guaranteed deals. And so that's why if you're the Texans, everything is open for you. But I think at least as it pertains to the quarterback position, you don't have to reach and take a quarterback in the first round just to say, oh, we drafted the next guy to be the successor to Deshaun Watson as the franchise quarterback. Now, there was a special moment before the game yesterday when Andre Johnson was honored and got a chance to run out of the tunnel again and got a warm ovation from fans. Of course, last week, Andre was announced as one of the finalists for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. If he gets in, which even if it isn't on the first ballot, I think eventually he will find his name in Canton. He's going to be the first Houston Texan to go in to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So Andre took some time to meet with reporters before the game yesterday and got his chance to discuss what it means to be a Pro Football Hall of Famer and to be back up front of the NRG and Reliant Stadium faithful. So here again is Mark Berman on Andre Johnson being back in front of the Texans fans.
It's always great, to be back here where everything started for me. Just to be back here, it just feels like home.
This is a special time for Andre, what with him being a finalist for the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
It's a great feeling, not only for me, I know for the organization, the fans, the whole city of Houston. Just to, be walking through the grocery store or be at the gas station and have so many people congratulate you and tell you that you deserve to be in. I'm just embracing it. I'm hoping, we get that next vote, to go into Canton.
Andre, who sat with the McNair family recently during a game, was asked about his relationship with the organization, given it was a year ago he publicly supported Deshaun Watson, which was prior to his legal issues, and criticized the Texans in the process.
It's fine. We had a talk. I think, when you have, it's just like a family. Like, I look at this organization like my family. So families are going to have disagreements. You have disagreements, you talk about it, you get over it, and you move on.
And again, I think it's just a matter of when, not if, Andre Johnson gets into the Hall of Fame. It'll be interesting to see how this first ballot plays out, because his numbers are up there in the top 15, top 20 all time in most of the receiving categories. But you look at his career and it overlaps with names like Randy Moss and Terrell Owens, Megatron, who just got in, Larry Fitzgerald, the ageless wonder. And while his numbers may not perhaps be as impressive of some of those guys, all those other names played at least some point in their career with big name quarterbacks. And so that's where I think Andre Johnson, it could hurt him or it could actually help him, that maybe voters look and go, look, he was doing this and still putting up this kind of production when he had David Carr or Matt Schaub, who had a few healthy seasons, but so often Andre Johnson was playing with backup quarterbacks, with journeymen, with rookies. He never had the luxury of playing with a Tom Brady or a Donovan McNabb in his prime, Dante Culpepper in his prime, everyone who Larry Fitzgerald has gotten to play with in Arizona. So perhaps that is something that plays to Andre's advantage, that even though, maybe he's not up there with some of the same contemporaries at the wide receiver position, you can go, well, he was doing this when he didn't have a solid QB, and many years he was the Texans offense. It was get the ball to 80 and hope that something happens. If you can get it in his hands, he's usually going to make something happen. But facing double, triple teams, not having a solid run game, a quarterback who was under duress and had to get rid of the ball quickly, and yet Andre Johnson was still able to produce. So it'll be interesting to see how things play out in the next few weeks before the finalists are trimmed down to who will actually be enshrined in this year's Hall of Fame class. All right, before we go, we do want to check in on the Rockets. They are back home taking on the Philadelphia 76ers. Still in the first quarter. It just got underway a few minutes ago. It is 19-12 Philly. Unlike the last time the Rockets faced the 76ers, which, if you recall, that was in Philly, and that was the game where Steven Silas and the Rockets suspended Christian Wood and Kevin Porter Jr. for poor behavior off the court. Well, the Rockets didn't have any big men to try to throw at Joel Embiid, who had just a monster game. So at least they have Christian Wood available for tonight. And already, though, Joel Embiid is up to 9 points in just the first 7 minutes of play. It's now 21-12 Philly with 5 minutes to go in the first quarter. So we will, of course, have those highlights for you tonight on Fox 26 News at 9. We'll have more on the Texans and the season postmortem and what is going on in the future, plus a potential big-name quarterback in the transfer portal makes his college decision, and U of H is the finalist. We will get into all that tonight for you on Fox 26 News at 9. As always, we want to remind you, for the most up-to-the-date updates and all news and info on everything in the Houston sports scene, make sure you are checking in with our sports director, Mark Berman, on Twitter. You can follow him. His handle is at Mark Berman, Fox 26. For all of us here at Fox 26, I'm Sal Manine. This has been the Fox 26 Sports Stream. We'll see you again next Monday night. Take care.